Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pro Trade Room Plus. And we are here for retail sales, U.S. retail, and the Canadian CPI report. My name is Lee Goldstein. I'm the trading director at 10 Minute Trades. I'm not a financial advisor. Please remember that all the trades we discuss are for educational purposes. It is possible to lose money trading futures, so trade carefully. Okay, everyone, we're back for U.S. retail. So let me just get the music set up and we'll get going. So we have two trap trades for all you trap trade lovers out there. Two traps. Now, US retail has a couple of different setups when it trades with PPI and when it trades the way it's trading today. So the way it's trading today, just a little bit smaller setup. And let me just show you the news that we're looking at. There's a lot of news elements this morning making up all these reports. And I do want to welcome everybody that's watching us on YouTube. This is our YouTube stream of the week. So thanks everyone who's watching on YouTube. And we do have a lot of guests in the room as well. So hello to everybody that's visiting. And earnings was a little bit weird this morning. Not a very, it's real difficult when the earnings are not reliable. So, you have to really decide whether or not I have to decide whether or not I want to spend the time on those earnings that aren't reliable. It may not be worth it. That's the issue. So, fair amount of elements that make up the two news reports. It's mostly Canada. It's a lot more than you really have to be worried about. The news, important news, is the month over month, the year over year. That's the main on Canada, and then the US retail sales month over month and the core month over month. I'm going to keep it off to the side. Let's take a peek at the DMM, the daily trade report. So for all the folks that are new here, the daily trade report is our recommended way of trading these events this morning. Now, what I'm going to do for retail is set up a trap trade, and it's an 8:30 event. So the time of the event is 8:30. Account warnings are off. The activation prep time is 5 seconds. And I'm going to use tiers of 35 and 45. $33 I'm going to use. I'm thinking of using 30, actually. Thinking of using 30 on retail. I'm going to leave it 33 and 45. Stop is 20. And I have a position at each tier. Position 1 is a 1, position 2 is a 1. So I'm going to create 2 orders above and below the current price. And I'm going to save the template so I know how I traded retail this month with gold. And today is So the U.S. retail report has been trading very well, Roz. And I think that, the Canada trade is starting to move, but I personally like U.S. retail better. It has a better possibility of profit. So if you want to reduce your risk, Roz, you could trade just the outer tier if you want to. That's a way to reduce risk on the report. And I'm going to check our time sync by going to the website time.is. All right. When we go to that website, it checks the sync of our computer. And let's take a look at Canada. Oh, Canada. In Canada, the setup that we like is 18 and 25 on the tiers with a stop of 25. 18, 25 with a stop of 25. Let me just double check my notes. We have been getting a little bit bigger moves on this report. If you want a tiny bit of extra safety, you could go 20 and 28 because we did see a little bit larger movement on this report. In other words, it's actually trending larger rather than smaller. Some of the reports are trending smaller. So you might consider, if you're going to trade Canada live, 20 and 28. The stop is 25. The stop is 25. I'm just going to trade US retail, trading US retail. And let me see if I've got some videos. One more time on Canada. The time of the event is 8:30. That's very important. If the time of the event is wrong, that's how the software calculates the activation time. So if I had left the time of the event at 10, then it would have tried to put my orders on the chart 5 seconds before 10 a.m. Eastern time. Now it's going to do it properly. It's going to put my orders on the chart 5 seconds before 8:30. Okay, and that's the way you want to do it. I've got a stop of 25 and I have a tier of 20 and 28. Time of event 8:30, and I will apply it and then save the template. Canada CPI, today's date. All right. And Canada, I'm not even going to pay attention to it because US retail might need to be managed. Okay. It might need to be managed. Oh, goodness gracious me. Hang on. I have to reboot my Ninja. Hopefully, that's all I have to reboot. Bear with me, folks. Hang on. So every now and then I've been working with Ninja. I don't know if it's my computer or if it's the platform, but every now and then I get this error from Ninja, and rebooting always solves it. So, if you ever have a problem, the key is don't panic. Obviously, if you have the problem 1 minute before the trade, then it's recommended don't rush into the trade. If you have a problem, just take the trade off. Don't trade. If I have a problem, then I generally will not trade. But if I have a problem, and if I have had this particular issue a bunch of times, so if it recurs, then sometimes I'll have to reboot my whole computer because look, I'm having trouble connecting. So something else could be going on. Although I'm hearing my Squawk Box just fine. But if I have to reboot, you all could just stay here. I'll reboot. It only takes me about 4 minutes. Okay, I'm good now. So I'm connected. So what I'll do is just bring back my strategies. And that's why I like saving a template, because now I save a lot of time by just going back to the trap trade, over to template, load, and I saved retail, right? You just have to remember how you saved it. Now, did I call it US retail or did I call it retail? I believe I called it retail, and I should have 10, 17, 23 with gold. There it is. And there's my setup, 33 and 45. Actually, yep, 33 and 45. 8:30 event. I've got it labeled. I've got one position for each tier, and I've got a stop of 20. So everything looks okay. And rebooting should have fixed everything, and it did. All right. Now, Canada, like I said, I'm not really going to pay attention to Canada, although I do think it's a decent trade. It's starting to behave better than it has. Tiers a tiny bit bigger because we're noticing a trending to the upside in terms of the size of the move in this event with Canada. So if you are trading it, you can increase the tiers just a tiny bit. It's not a lot. One position for each tier. So you have position 1 is a 1, position 2 is a 1. The stop is 25. And the tiers are 20 and 28. 20 and 28. Sorry, the stop is not that big. All right. The stop is not that big. I'm showing a stop of 20 in our testing. So there's Canada. And like I said, I'm going to pay attention to US retail because it might need to be managed. All right. The US retail. Now, last month, we were not stopped because we used much, 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 much bigger tiers. Because when we trade with PPI, we use much, much bigger tiers, and we did not have a stop last month. That stop would be based on whether you use the smaller tiers for this particular event today. Now we do have quite a bit of news. There's also Canadian housing starts at 8:15. So you might see a little bit of movement on the Canadian dollar. We're trading the Canadian dollar currency futures, and we're trading gold futures for US retail. We're going to check our time sync like we always do. But let's just watch Canada for a moment. I don't expect a very big move from that news. US retail has been a report that's behaving well. So it is a report. It is a report that I always trade it. It's gone over the years through some, of course, every report sometimes has difficult periods. It's not unusual. But US retail, it's important news. The market pays really close attention to it, and it has a very good opportunity of movement. So that's why it's a good report to trade, and the traps have been working very well. It has not been a breakout trade in a very long time. It's not a breakout trade. Why is something not a breakout trade? Because it does a lot of reversing. Maybe it doesn't follow through. You know, that's the reason it's not a breakout. Maybe liquidity is challenged sometimes. I'd much rather trade a trap trade if there's liquidity issues than a breakout, because we're trying to get filled the opposite direction that the market's moving. And that's generally an easier fill when there's bad liquidity. So I go to the website time.is and it checks to see if my computer is in sync. I'm watching all the news right on the side. And I do want to thank everybody. We have a lot of visitors here. So I know sometimes when you're just visiting in the beginning, if you've never seen what we do, it can be confusing. Basically, it's really very simple what we're doing. We're just setting up a bracket. With the trap trade, here's a video of last month's trap trade. And we're setting up brackets. Now, last month, I think we only used one tier. Yeah, we only traded one tier. Let me make sure. Let me see what we did. Hang on. There were so many trades that morning. We had the European ECB bank rate that morning. We did only trade one tier last month, and it was a big tier, 65 ticks. And it was a very good move. You'll see it reversed instantly. It would have been the worst recipe for a breakout, because what happened is the price shot down, completely changed direction almost immediately, and that almost always gives you a good trap trade setup. So now also keep in mind it did trade last month with PPI, but we still do feel that there's a possibility for reversing, and that's why we do this trap. Our orders are going to show up roughly 5 seconds before the news. Watch, it's going to shoot down, and we're already in a big profit because we got filled down as it shot. The idea of the trap trade is if the market goes down, we go long, we buy the market. If the market goes up, we sell the market, and we get our profit when the direction changes. That's how we get our profit. Now you could see Canada had a little bit of a move. on that housing news. Here is July with Canada also in the recording, Canada CPI. So this was July. US retail on the right, Canada on the left. And I'm not sure what, so this video, I don't know what if we didn't, I don't remember if we traded it back in July. Excuse me. Looks like we were concentrating on Canada for some reason and doing it. Hang on, I'm trying to make sense of this video. So, looks like we didn't really trade them. It must have been that because of what happened earlier that morning. But I'm not really seeing a retail trade in July. Now, gold is responding right now to the gold open. What you're seeing is the gold market opens at 820. So that market should calm down in a few minutes. Now, I do have an August retail. Let's take a look at August and see what happened in August. August, we also had Canada CPI. Okay, so US, we had the trap trade like we're doing now. Price shot up, pulled back down. So I'm watching the US retail to see if we got our pullback or not. I think that we had a stop. Let's see what happens. I don't remember what happened in July, so let's watch. Okay, so July, it filled two of the orders and then it started pulling back and we had a decent profit, decent profitable trade in July. And Canada in July had a good sized move down and you can see it reversed the candle because the candle went all the way to 720 and reversed almost 80% of the candle. That is a trap trade. That's what you want to see from a trap trade. You want to see those reversals. Okay. So once again, the idea is we're going to put orders on the chart 5 seconds before the retail news comes out. The retail news is going to move the gold futures. And what we're looking to happen is there will be a burst in one direction or the other on the news, and then we're looking for a change in direction to take profit. We have a special sheet that we create. We call it the spike sheet. And the spike sheet shows us all the spikes this report generated with and without PPI. So we're looking non-PPI, all right? The biggest spike we had was 53. If you go back to November, the biggest spike we had was 66. So if we have tiers of 45 and a stop of 20, that's 65 ticks. That might have stopped us out. Maybe. It would have been very close. But that's a pretty big spike. And there haven't been any spikes that big since way back in November, almost a year ago. Our tiers, 33 and 45 with a stop of 20. 33 and 45 with a stop of 20, Eva. Prep of 5 seconds. Don't be late again. All right. What are they expecting on retail? What are they expecting? U.S. retail sales, expecting them to be lower than the previous. And somehow the consumer has been surprising everyone in that the consumer's still out there buying. Somehow the American consumer seems to buy stuff no matter what. But with the Fed raising rates, it's definitely more complicated to buy stuff. It costs more money to buy everything. Even though they say inflation is moderating, I think a lot of us know inflation is maybe not moderating like they say it is. Food's expensive, housing's expensive. You try to buy some weed, it's expensive. The cost of weed's up. Everything's expensive. Activation prep is where the 5 second goes. Activation prep. Right under parameters, under the time of the event, activation prep, the number 5 goes in there. Number 5. Okay, we're getting close now. Remember, you want to see your buttons. Break even button, close the trade button, cancel the outer tier button, combine button, okay? If you can't see your buttons, it's because your chart is not wide enough, okay? Especially if you're trading both trap trades. One of them, you might not be able to see all your buttons, so keep that in mind. You might have to spread that chart wider, okay? So what'll happen 5 seconds before the news comes out again, our orders will show up on the chart. If your chart's too far spread apart, you won't see your orders. You might have to shrink it, okay? You've got a break even button, David. That, of course, moves the stop to break even plus a tick if you're in profit only. The close button will close the trade. It's the same as the close button. The adjust button, we're not going to talk about now. We don't use it right now. The cancel button, if you only get one order filled, it'll cancel the other order so it's not in the way. If you have to start taking profit or you want to exit the trade, you might have to cancel the extra tier. and then the combine button combuttons combuttons two buttons. It combines two orders or three or open orders into one using the price that's closest to the current price. I think that's probably enough buttons for one trade. You know, there's a lot of buttons. The buy market button, all the chart trader has buttons. Buttons are good. They make it easier to do things. Okay, there's our orders. So I want to see them. Okay. Now, I moved my stop because I was concerned that it might reverse and or it might keep going. So if I have a profit, I normally move my stop, okay? I normally move my stop. So I moved my stop to safety because what's happening is the price is continuing down. Price is continuing down. Now, I told you I wasn't paying attention to Canada. I didn't see my orders on the Canadian chart, but it looks like Canada just shot in one direction and didn't change direction even slightly. US retail, you had to get out fast because it didn't reverse initially. It's reversing now. Chantal, how big was the spike? How big was the spike? So remember, our tiers were 35, 33. Our tiers were 33 and 45. 33 and 45. Now, this particular trap, it had an instant profit, but nobody, I don't think, I'll show you on the video, I don't think anybody would have gotten out quite that fast. Now, it's possible that I jumped too soon. It's always possible that I jumped too soon. It was an 80 spike on gold. So it was a very big spike today, a very big spike. Remember, so we had a 45 outer tier. So there could have been people that got stopped out immediately. It's possible. It's possible. I did not get stopped out immediately. Let's look at the video and it'll tell us what happened. Now, MGC had a much bigger move. What's going on with MGC, Chantal? The moves are so much bigger than regular gold. It's very strange what we're seeing on micro gold. We're seeing much larger moves than regular gold, which is a little bit, we're not accustomed to seeing moves that are not more equivalent. But you could see that it was a big wick. It was a big wick, but the tiers, this was a huge, huge retail move without PPI. Let's take a look at what happened on the news. Let me get rid of the pop-ups. Now, US retail sales were way above what they expected, very, very high. That created a burst in one direction rather than a burst in, and it was a very small reversal. I think I just got lucky in the way that I managed the trade. I don't want to make out like I'm some big genius. Let me show you the video. It looks like the spike was 75 ticks, but that doesn't make sense, Chantal, because I would have been stopped out if it was 75 ticks, because I used tiers of 45 with a stop of 20. The only thing you can say is this, and here's why I might not have been stopped out. If it was a 75 tick spike, my orders, remember, were put on the market 5 seconds, 5 seconds before the news, 5 seconds before the news. So there was movement in the instrument that would have made up for the fact that I did not get stopped. And, you know, I see your comment, Langford, that's why you don't like traps. Our traps are working at a higher, as just a high level as our breakout trades. So I understand that nobody likes a trap when it doesn't work, but the trap trades are working great. I mean, the reality is they're working really well. This is the first retail um, that I can remember that hasn't worked as a trap trade. It worked last month, it worked the month before. It's working, and most of the traps are great. I think people don't like the traps because they're scary. They're scary. You're in a trade and you're waiting for a change in direction. But if you think about it, they're not any different than trading a breakout. You don't know that a breakout is going to have a whipsaw or not, right? What's the worst thing that can happen to a trap? It'll do what it did today. It'll move in one direction way bigger than expected. Okay, so today was the first time in ages that a breakout might have worked. Okay, but the reality is, so often we see a change in direction on this particular event. And that's why the trap works. I somehow got out really fast. Let's look at what happened. So I'll just talk you through why I did what I did. So let me save the video. But sometimes you get lucky also. Sometimes what you do is lucky. Sometimes what you do is smart. It's just the nature of trading. But it looks to me like, what was the spike on Canada, Chantal? And look what Chantal is saying, folks. If you don't like trap trades, make the tiers, absolutely fantastic advice, make the tiers bigger and you'll only catch the huge trades. But you'll miss a lot of trades that way. You will miss trades. But if you don't like them, if you make the tiers bigger. So how much bigger? You could use the PPI setup on a trap trade with retail, and the tiers are, instead of 45, it's 65 on the outer tier. So you can always ask us, how big can I make the tiers? And it's reasonable, and we'll try to give you advice. I totally disagree, Langford. Totally disagree. I mean, why trade anything then? If you don't want to get stopped out, why trade anything? You're going to have trap trades that don't work. It's just the nature of it. But I can show you video after video after video of working traps. So I can't convince you to like the trap, but I don't know, does anybody really like trading? Do you like trading? You're trading to get money out of the market. It's nerve-wracking. no matter what we do. It's nerve-wracking. I love the traps. I love them. That's the truth. I love them. And they're they're great setups. That's the reality. They're great setups. And sometimes the tiers aren't big enough. Sometimes the market does the unexpected. Today it was unexpected. Retail sales were huge. They were huge. So I'm not trying to talk you all into the traps, but I do want you to understand that you shouldn't have more fear than necessary about the setup. I think the fear is not proportional to the quality of the setup. That's how I feel about it. All right. Everybody gets nervous trading and waiting for that reversal. So when that reversal doesn't come, or when the reversal is slow, that's nerve wracking. It's really nerve wracking. Ross, it's too many variations. There's nothing to do except move your targets. All you really have to do is move the targets. That's it most of the times. Most of the time, if you have anything extra to do, it might be to cancel the tier that doesn't get filled, right? But what I would say, if you are uncomfortable with trap trades, just practice them. Practice them more. Practice them more. And I promise you'll get more comfortable with them. To me, they're no different than if you have a whipsaw on a breakout trade. That's the enemy of a breakout trade. And a perfect move in one direction is the enemy of the trap trade. It's really no difference except they have different enemies. That's all. But it's a question, just like I've had to practice breakout trades for years, I had to practice trap trades. I normally feel so comfortable if you get in the habit of, look at the spike sheet. Look at this sheet. Look at this sheet. This is why I'm not afraid to trade the trap. If you look at the spike sheet, so what's the worst? And that's if we had PPI. Okay. So if you want to trade this report in the most conservative way possible, then you want to figure for the biggest moves throughout the past year. Okay. This is almost a year of movement. Every single trap trade except today would have been safe without PPI. Every single one. That's August, July, June. You would not have gotten stopped on the spike. Okay. When I look at these spike sheets, they give me the confidence not to worry that I'm going to get stopped out on most trap trades. That to me is the key with having confidence in the trap trade. Realizing that we are not going to have a trap trade if we don't do a spike sheet. We're not just going to randomly do a trap trade because it looks like it's reversing. Okay. We're not going to do that to you. We don't want you to get stopped out. We create a spike sheet for every trap trade. Okay. Every single trap trade. Now, if you use big tiers, you could have caught this reversal. It would not have stopped you out. We have to take responsibility that today our tiers were small. They were too small. All right. But why? Why were they too small? The news was an anomaly. It was huge, huge news. Huge, huge news. Okay. And It isn't, as James says on YouTube, it's an emotional trade. Markets and people are looking at it. Markets and people are looking at it. Let's look at the video and see what happened. And I do want to thank everybody on YouTube for joining with us. We're going to close our YouTube stream now, and just hit the like button on your way out and hit the notification bell so you know the next time we're streaming. We stream once a week. You can go to 10minutetrades.com to learn about the way we trade. So thank you for joining us on YouTube.